Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner Office Chats. I'm here today, and I want to talk to you guys about the power of self-assessment. And I'm going to talk about three different questions you can ask or statements you can make to self-assess your performance. And, here's the thing. Most people are not proactively assessing their performance, right? It happens a handful of times a year. Maybe they do it during their annual performance review at work, or when there's a major problem. And then they kind of look back and say, okay, well, what happened just before that? Or how did this happen? Or, New Year's Eve, when we're looking back on how we progress on our goals, or what the last year kind of brought for us. And the unfortunate part is oftentimes people aren't happy with the results, but at the point that they're looking at it, it's too late to really do anything about it in that moment. So most people, I know we have this conversation and it sounds like a great one, and most people don't want to, take the time to build in a practice of self-assessment. They're like, it's one more thing I have to do. It's another thing I have to remember before I go to bed. But the problem is that if you aren't going to, if you have that feeling inside, that sort of restless feeling that there's a next level for you, that there's something that, that there's more for you than where you're at right now, the way to access that, the way to get there is to start assessing and evaluating yourself. And most people don't even know where to start because they've never done it. They've never measured themselves, never had a practice where they're doing this. And it's, if you think about it, if you're a business owner, or, in your work, in your career, you have metrics, you have KPIs, you have things that, if you're successful in a particular area, or you're hitting the mark in this particular project, that you've made progress in this, this department, based on the metrics you've put in place, and you're measuring those things, right? It makes sense in business. Why don't we apply that to our own personal development and, our own, achievement and accomplishments, and measure ourselves so that we can continue to improve on the processes, on the systems, and be able to sort of get past and hit that next level, and one of the areas that we really need to look at is our own self-awareness, right? Because isn't it true there's somebody in your life where, you wish that person was more aware of how they were behaving, right? Like that person that's just super negative, or, speaks before thinking, and, you want to like set them down and be like, hey, you're not being a good person, or, you're not aware of how hurtful your words are, or, your lack of empathy is killing the morale in our department. Like, you just wish that they would be more self-aware, more aware of their actions and the impacts of those behaviors. But, how do you become self-aware? Right? It's not like the light just turns on one day for people and they just realize it and decide to make a change. Self-awareness comes through self-evaluation. Okay. So what are your habits right now on how you evaluate yourself? Okay. If you're sitting there, you're like, and if you have some, right, you're like, no, I do a monthly assessment or a quarterly assessment. Amazing. Like, virtual high five, keep at it. If you're like, ooh, like looking the other way right now, I'm going to exit out of this live show, then don't beat yourself up. But there's a simple way that you can begin to self-assess on a nightly basis. So, building this a practice into your nightly routine just before you turn out the lights, or maybe, when you start winding down that power down hour, you have a notebook and you have a couple questions you can ask yourself based on the day's events. And now, there are so many ways that you can do this. I'm going to give you three of, mine and Mehreen's kind of favorite. They're more statements than questions, but you can ask yourself this and then phrase it in a statement and rate yourself. But you might score yourself on, your own core values. If you know your core values, that's a whole nother corner office chat that we've done. But how closely or how much did you sort of show up and align yourself in the day in your core values? Maybe you value yourself based on your energy for the day, right? So maybe you're looking to try and up your energy, and by assessing, you can find out where did you have that energy dip, what happened just before, or that day, or how was your sleep, and you can kind of start to judge and what affected the energy. Maybe it's your relationships and how you are influencing others. Maybe it's your focus. Maybe you want to assess your sales or your client relations. Whatever it might be for you that you really want to see breakthrough to that next level, you want to make sure that you are putting some sort of self-assessment in place on a daily basis. And I know I can feel the eye rolls of another thing to do, but I'm telling you, this is how the high performers get themselves to that next level. And at the point where they are high performers, they're not even really realizing that they're doing this, but they're constantly assessing themselves. So I'm going to give you 3 really great question statements that you can ask yourself at the end of every day that can help you in the area of upping your productivity and how you're showing up. So the first one I want to share with you is, I worked on things that mattered most today. Okay, this is a great question. Now, this one only works if you know the things that matter most to you. You know the goals that you're working towards, whether that's professionally or personally. You have clarity around what that looks like, and then the tasks that are going to move you forward, give you momentum or forward progress on those goals. So you're going to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5, right? 1, you sucked. You did nothing that mattered all day. 5, you were amazing. Okay. And then anywhere in between. The second one is, I avoided distractions well today, right? We all know that one of the number 1 killers of productivity and momentum is distractions. And they may not always be the typical ones that we talk about, social media or, Netflix or whatever your distraction of choice might be. You might actually be distracting yourself from doing the things that mattered, those needle moving activities, because they're challenging or because you're not sure where to start. Maybe you're cleaning out your closet. Maybe you're online shopping. Or maybe it's disguised as something productive like cleaning your house when you really should be focusing on work. So I avoided distractions well today. You rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5. And then the third one is, I fully engaged and enjoyed my efforts today. High performers strive satisfied, right? We honor the struggle. We enjoy the journey. And if we're not, that's a key that we step back and say, okay, I have not been enjoying the past few days in work, or I have not been enjoying the past few days in my relationship, or the way I've been speaking to myself, whatever area you want to improve on, or you're finding that you're not enjoying. What can I do to change that up? What can I implement? What can I stop doing? What can I start doing? And we start asking ourselves these questions. High performers are always measuring themselves and tweaking their habits, their routines to maximize their energy, their productivity, and their joy in the simple tasks of life. So, you can create your own scoring mechanism. You don't have to, use the 3 that I gave you today. You can do your own. And maybe there's a specific area that you're really looking to get progress on. But here's the thing. You want to do it daily, okay? At least to start, you want to be going through, just grab a dollar store notebook, write your questions down. You might have 5 questions. Whatever area that, like I said, is really important to you that you want to improve in, and start this process today and get specific. Okay, specific questions or specific statements that gets you really thinking and gets you really curious as to how you can move the needle in that particular area. So like if I asked you, well, how did you do today? You might say, pretty good. It was a good day, right? But if I asked you, how did you do today in keeping your commitments to yourself? Right? And now you might be thinking, oh, I said I was going to drink those 8 glasses of water, or I was going to get my workout in, or, I really needed to focus on this project, but, I ended up working on something else for another colleague because they asked me for help. Whatever it is, you're now starting to think about that specific area. And if I ask you, how did you do today in keeping your commitments to yourself and avoiding distraction throughout the day? Now we've got a completely different quality of answer, right? So you want to get specific in what it is that you're trying to accomplish, or you're trying to achieve, or you're trying to gain productivity or momentum in, and then rate yourself. And now you may get some low numbers to start, and that's okay. Don't get bummed out by those low numbers. If you're not scoring yourself consistently and starting to see a pattern, or starting to see the areas that you're possibly missing, if you're not scoring yourself consistency, this is why you're feeling maybe out of balance, right? Maybe you're working super hard at work or on your business, but you're neglecting the kids or family time, right? You're putting the time in, but it's not quality time. And so you're feeling like you're feeling off balance, even though you're making progress in another area. So it's a good way, for myself, I have different categories that I score myself in. And I've tried very hard to keep the commitment to do it nightly, because, you can see where you've got the improvement and where maybe there's a decline. And when you're catching it a lot quicker, if you realize, let's say one of your categories is your relationship with your partner. So I have my partner, my kids, my work, and my energy, and then my own self-care. So those are 5 areas that I score myself in. I might see, I've got some low numbers in the husband category, meaning that we haven't spent quality time, or I've been extra moody with him, or snappy, or we've been arguing, or whatever it is. I can see, wow, this whole week I've rated myself like a 2. Okay, that area now needs a little bit more of my attention this weekend or this coming week. If I've really realized in the self-care, some weeks it's a 1. And I'm I did not honor those commitments to myself in terms of time alone, or, getting a walk in, different things that I know for myself are really important for me to recharge. I am an extrovert. I recharge socially. So when I am not reaching out to my girlfriends, when I'm not having those conversations, when I'm not building in some of that social interaction time, I get really crabby. Some people recharge, introverts recharge, on their own, and they decompress. I'm the opposite. So when I look at those different areas, I'm able to sort of see the pattern quickly and course correct right away. As opposed to, I'm so focused on work, I'm neglecting my kids, I'm neglecting my relationship, I'm neglecting my self-care. And now a month goes by, 2 months go by. Now we're getting into some real problems. Now my marriage is really not doing well. Now I'm constantly yelling at the kids. Now my health is really declining. I'm packing on the pounds, whatever it is, right? You don't want to get to that part. You want to work offensively, not defensively. So it's a short one today because it's, like I said last week, it's sometimes hard to chat with myself here, but I'm going to take a quick second and just look into the comments to see if there's any questions or comments in this area. Please, hashtag live if you are watching these live. It helps us to know. And then hashtag replay if you're watching this later on in the group, and pop your comment or your question in there, or throw in, if you do a self-assessment, throw in some of the questions or the statements you ask yourself to give other people ideas. Steal. If you see something cool, you're like, oh, that's a great question, or that's a great, metric to assess, use it, right? That's what this group is for. So I will pop these in the comment section after this live wraps up, so that if you didn't catch it during here, you'll be able to see it in the comments. But so important to really build in a practice of self-assessment. Start with a daily assessment every single night. Base yourself, your questions based on those key areas. Other ways of doing it too is monthly and quarterly, right? Don't just do that annual review or that year-end review and look back. Be proactive and start assessing and start course correcting right away. Thanks so much, ladies, for showing up. Again, drop your comments or your questions in there, and we'll be sure to connect or answer any questions that you have. Have a wonderful Thursday. Have an incredible weekend, and we will see you again next week.